story has been told to our group.
Oh, great.
The group has saw the lifestyle medicine video, a little 7-minute video or so about what demons you have faced and overcome. And what I wanted you to, what I think the group needs to know is that you're young, but you've got a lot of wisdom. And I think the reason you have this wisdom, this is my own personal opinion, is because you face so many demons. You have battled those demons and overcome those demons, and so you're able, I think, to feel the pain some others feel and answer questions in a good, concise manner and help them deal with their demons. So what I'm saying is to the group, if you've got questions of Adam, don't let his age fool you. The guy knows his stuff. He really does. So on that line, a lot of people think this is hard, Adam. It's hard to be whole food plant-based, but it's not. It's easy. For instance, I know that from your talks that you have told us about the meals that you have and prepared, and just how easy they are. Tell the group about your go-to meal and how easy it is to prepare and how healthy it is for you.
Yeah, so, when I made my transition, I remember that, look, I'm lousy in the kitchen. Like, if for me this was going to be about making every recipe that's available to the low-fat, whole food, plant-based lifestyle, then I would find myself in a very resentful, frustrated situation. This was about connecting to the food rather than the recipes, because recipes are made of food. Right, so for me, I fell in love. I created joy in finding the foods that I enjoyed the most and putting those on my plate and finding a connection to those foods. So for me, every morning it's oatmeal with cinnamon and a big bowl of fruit on the side. And for lunch, it's a baked sweet potato with some more fruit and some greens. And then for dinner, it's lentils and cauliflower and with some spices. And I'm a huge fan of fruit, so I eat fruit all up throughout the day. But I didn't fixate on the recipes and having the recipes be whether or not I'm successful. Like at the end of the day, if I can't find a way to find the joy in owning my health by falling in love with the act of putting these foods on my plate, then this was going to be a very difficult thing for me to do. But if I did find a way to find the joy in owning my health and well-being with this way of living, with falling in love with putting these foods on my plate, if I could do that, then all the results, everything else, the weight loss, the diabetes, all that stuff will take care of itself. It's irrelevant to worry about.
I noticed that every food you mentioned there were whole foods. Lentils, oatmeal, fruit, and you get them done, and it's easy to cook these foods, and it's easy to put them together, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. It doesn't have to be all part of your day. It's a part of your day that you enjoy, but it doesn't have to take a long time, and it's easy. It's not hard.
It's not hard. It's very, very simple. It takes an hour for me to bake 10 sweet potatoes for the week, because I do it on Sunday night if I'm watching TV, so I'm not losing any time because I don't have to observe the baking of these potatoes. I just put them in the oven and they cook themselves. And so I cook those potatoes for the week. I have all my fruit in the fridge. I have my oats, those take a minute and a half in the microwave. That's nothing. I have my spices and everything is it's there. It's ready to go. So what I'm doing is I'm taking foods that I love and I'm just assembling them onto a plate. I'm not spending, hours of the day in the kitchen chopping and prepping and all this stuff.
In the video that we just watched, you talked about when you went to your endocrinologist and he told you that your blood sugar was down, and that was when you informed him that you had not been taking your medicine. And one of the things that we do recommend to all of our members here is that you do keep your doctor informed about your changing the way you're eating, and can you speak to the importance of that because of the changes that happen?
Of course, yeah. So, I mentioned in the story because I was being honest to my experience. So that's something that I did, and it's something that I don't recommend anybody do, which is to stop taking their medication without talking to their doctor. That's never in your best interest. It's also very, very important that your prescribing doctor, whether they agree with what you're doing or not, is aware of what you are doing outside of their office. Because whether they agree with you or not, they're part of your team. And it's not their job to agree with what you're doing, it's their job to support you in the best way that they know how, with how you're choosing to live your life. So, for example, if I were to go to an endocrinologist and say, listen, I'm diagnosed with diabetes, and I heard from these amazing doctors that if I adopt a low-fat, whole food, plant-based lifestyle, that I will reverse my diabetes, I'll reverse the condition. And I know that the medication that you're prescribing is going to help treat the symptom, but I want to reverse the condition. And they go, oh, well, you can't eat carbohydrate as a diabetic, which is absurd. Of course you can. This is how you reverse it. Really, what you should say is, well, this is what I'm going to do. It is what I want to do. It is what I want to try. I'm going to do this for, say I want to do this for 6 months, and I need your support in this, and I need you to know that this is what I'm going to be doing outside of the office, so that if issues do come up, they have an understanding of everything that is going on. Because at the end of the day, you are the one who decides what goes in your body or not. Their job is to support you moving forward with treating your condition.
Would you talk about the difference between vegan and whole plant-based?
Of course, yeah. So I eat a low-fat, whole food, plant-based diet. That means that I eat fruits and vegetables in their whole intact state, right? So I eat, dark leafy greens like kale and chard and all those wonderful things. Fruits, all different kinds of fruits. Starchy vegetables like potatoes and beans and things like this. Non-starchy vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, as well as whole intact grains. That's a diet. That's a way of living, right? That's a way of eating. Veganism is a compassionate lifestyle. So that's more than just what you're eating. It's a lifestyle that believes that the way that I move through the world will not impact the quality of life of any other sentient living creature. So technically a vegan diet could be Oreos and Coca-Cola. Well, I'm never going to consume those things because the diet that I eat is low-fat, whole food, plant-based. It's about healing myself. I am also a vegan. I don't wear leather. I don't contribute to the exploitation or torture of other living sentient creatures. But that is not the reason why I'm plant-based. I like to say it like this. Nutritional science dictates that I eat a plant-based diet. For me, morality dictates that I live as a vegan. So those are the two different things.
Hello, can you tell me some of your favorite desserts for a vegan lifestyle? Because, in our family we seem to love desserts in the morning, and I think fruits are best in the morning and vegetables are best in the evening, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you.
Well, fruits and vegetables are best anytime, all the time. There's no need to worry about when and what you're eating as long as they're low-fat whole foods. To answer your question, my favorite dessert is banana nice cream. I don't know if you guys have ever made this, where you take frozen bananas and you simply just blend them. And you can add a little bit of plant milk or water to thin it out if you like. But my favorite combination, I have a few favorite combinations. Banana blueberry is beautiful. It's delicious. It's wonderful. Banana blueberry mango is also great. Banana jackfruit is incredible. So you have all these incredibly delicious fruits: peaches, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries. You can do cherries. You can do dates. You can do all these amazing things, and so that's my favorite. And especially here in Texas in the summer when it's so blistering hot. I'm sure you guys know. You guys are in Florida. It gets hot there. There's nothing better than a big bowl of frozen fruit. It's just, there's so many days during the summer when I'll literally go into the store, buy a 2-pound bag of frozen mango, and just break it open and eat the whole thing. Just because it's so delicious, and they have such a soft bite, even when they're frozen. It's like little ice cream bites. And I just get the biggest smile on my face. Because food for me has become this daily act of self-care and self-love. It's more than just food. It's about how I see myself and the respect that I give myself and the respect that I give to the rest of the world, my ability to connect with the natural world. I look at, this is going beyond your question, but you got me in a rant here. There is so much of what we experience, the anxiety, the depression, the things that I went through, these are conditions of disconnection. We are the most disconnected species of animal that's ever been. Right? We have We are an Earth-connected species, like all other animals on this planet, yet we have walled ourselves away from Mother Nature behind concrete and glass. We will spend the majority of our lives without allowing our feet to touch the earth. We walk on concrete, which is not the earth, and we wear shoes which don't allow our feet to touch the soil. And yet we wonder, by the time we're young adults, we start to wonder why we're feeling lost. Well, we have separated ourselves from our natural home. There's such a benefit that comes from going outside and taking your shoes off and putting your feet in the dirt and putting your hand on a tree and just breathing with nature and taking a moment to just sit in that experience and maybe perhaps recognize that not only have I been missing being in nature, but maybe nature has missed having me as well. And so much of these, for me, the anxiety that I experienced during the day, the frustrations, because that's part of life. Like when I got into addiction recovery and started my recovery from emotional issues, my goal was not to live a life without temptation, without craving, without frustration, without anger or sadness, but to live a life where those exist and be okay with it. And that's really important for people who are making this transition from the standard American diet to this way of eating, is that you're going to be tempted by food your entire life. I mean, I'm young, but I'm going to make that assumption that temptations or cravings are a human experience. It's about developing a lifestyle to where when those do happen, you can sit in that experience and say, these feelings that I'm having are normal, they're human, and they're temporary. And with all things temporary, they're probably pretty valuable. And if I fight these temptations, if I fight these frustrations, these urges, I'm fighting the opportunity to gain a greater awareness of myself. Rather, I'm going to sit in this experience, let it pass, and when the opportunity is clear for me to move in a way that is positive and in alignment with what I'm trying to achieve in my life, then I will act. So I know I really went off on a tangent there, but that's stuff I'm really passionate about. But yes, banana and ice cream, that's my favorite.
I'm a senior citizen, and I live about an hour away from here, and we're new to Florida, but my church is here and my doctors are here, and I would like to get in the habit of packing a lunchbox, because that would keep me away from so many fast food restaurants. What would you suggest?
Well, what are your favorite foods?
Well, I'm like you in that, I like fruits, like cantaloupe, carrots, my favorite vegetable, and green beans, but the things that you mentioned earlier, they all have to be cooked. And in a lunchbox, I thought you'd have to pack like some ice and things.
No, they'll be fine for the day. That won't be a problem. I mean, unless you're leaving it sitting in the car in like 102-degree weather, it'll be fine. So my answer to anybody who says, well, I want to bring food with me for the day, the answer is usually, what are your favorite foods? Put enough of those foods into your, whatever you're taking.
There we go.
Yeah, so I think I lost you there for a second.
I was with you when the part you said, take your favorite foods.
Yes, take your favorite foods, take enough of them to satisfy you for the day, and that should be the goal, right, because if you're not excited by what you're eating, then temptations is going to be a little bit more difficult, right? If it's like, all right, well, I brought food to have so that I don't have to worry about the temptations of fast food and stuff like that, but if the food that you brought doesn't excite you, that temptation becomes more powerful, right? Because then the draw to what you brought is less intense than the draw of the other foods. So that's what I would say. One thing that's really important to understand is that there is no superfood. There is no one specific food in the plant-based diet that is most important to have all the time. There is a superior diet. And if you're putting low-fat, whole-food plants on your plate every single day, and you're eating enough calories, it's nearly impossible to get it wrong. So that's my recommendation, is that if I could give you an answer that works for me. I would always have 2 sweet potatoes packed with me, and I would always have some kind of fruit, like 3 bananas, or a couple apples, or some mangoes or something like that. That would work for me. But it has to be, what are your favorite foods?
Well, thank you. So how do you carry the sweet potatoes? You already said you cook them Sunday night.
Yeah.
What, you wrap them like in saran wrap? In your
Yeah, that
lunchbox? In your lunchbox?
Yeah, or a Ziploc bag, or however you're gonna carry it. Put it in a Ziploc bag, put it in my backpack, and then literally just. I would literally just take it out and hold it in my hand and eat it at the desk. I'm not gonna chop it with a knife or fork. But yeah, it's not as complicated as a lot of times anything that's new we assume is going to be very complicated and difficult to do. But it's in the same way as we always did. How did you bring your food before? In the same way, you're just changing the foods that you're bringing.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Oh, my pleasure.
Well, we enjoy having you, and I'd like to ask you something, and it may be a little specific just to you, but I'm kind of, I grew up with the same old spices, and you talk about spices, and I'd like some suggestions. I know you have your favorites, but what are good spices to start out with?
So cinnamon is a must in my house. Right, I buy. So when I go buy cinnamon, I don't buy in bulk. I literally buy their bulk bag that they receive. And I like Ceylon cinnamon. It's the healthiest cinnamon, but again, like, I'm not trying to make perfect the enemy of good here. I also really like the flavor of it. I also like Vietnamese cinnamon. I keep turmeric in my house at all time. I keep onion powder, garlic powder, curry powder, paprika. These are sort of like the go-tos. Like if I'm making a savory bowl out of cauliflower and lentils, I'm going to put onion powder, garlic powder, turmeric, and curry in there. And it's going to be amazing. With some spinach or some kind of green. And it literally takes 3 minutes. I mean, it takes 3 minutes to do, because I microwave the cauliflower, and like 3 minutes is done. At the same time, I'm pouring the lentils into the bowl. Then I put the cauliflower into the bowl, add the spices, add some greens, heat it up, boom. Because I get all my lentils in a can. So for me, convenience is key for me. It has to be, I don't want to be cooking for 45 minutes. I want to just make the food, assemble it really quickly, heat it up, and eat it. It's delicious.
Hi, Adam. Can you tell me how you're dealing with your ADHD?
Yeah, sure.
Those outfits.
Of course. So nothing has changed in regards to the diagnosis, I don't believe. But I've certainly changed the way that I move through the world. So I do wholeheartedly believe that the diet is huge. It's a huge key. We know that the reduction of arachidonic acid, which is this negligent long-chain omega-6 fatty acid that's found in animal products, causes inflammation throughout the body. And if you're having inflammation in the body, guess what? You're having inflammation in the brain. And neuroinflammation creates symptoms of anxiety, stress, depression, all these sorts of things. So the diet reduces those symptoms and the experience of those things. But I also know that mindfulness meditation has been huge for me. And because I have ADHD, I know I can't sit for very long. So I meditate through movement. For me, long distance running has been my meditation, because if I go out and I run for an hour, there are going to be moments during that run that'll string together where I can put together probably 10 minutes where I was literally nothing more than place, step, and breath. And that's the experience of separating the emotional self from the physical self for just long enough so that I can just be right now. And that was like really one of the biggest things for me when I got into recovery, when I started changing my life, was that I was so certain about things. And that certainty was hindering my ability to change and make positive change. I thought I had to be right about a lot of things in order to protect my ego. But what I found was when I stopped trying to be right and I attempted to just be right now, I was able to learn more about myself than I ever have. And the practice of mindful meditation made me comfortable with that act of just being, opening myself up to listen to others who have knowledge or experience that I could use and I could learn from. I could say, I'll take in what you have to offer. I'll implement it into my lifestyle. If it works and I find joy in doing it, I'll keep it. If it doesn't work, I'll find something else and I'll keep moving forward. One of the things I think is really important is that I never once told myself that I would be doing this for the rest of my life. I mentioned, I hit on this a little bit earlier, but when I got into recovery, I couldn't see 30 days down the road, let alone the rest of my life. So I never told myself that I would be sober for the rest of my life, and I never told myself I would eat a plant-based diet for the rest of my life. I said, I'm going to do this for 7 days. And I'm going to plan these 7 days, and I'm going to try these things that other people were saying I should do. I was, Rip Esselstyn was my, he was the person that motivated me to change my diet. So I'm going to do what Rip said. I'm going to do it for 7 days. If it works, I'm going to keep it. If I find joy in doing it, I'm going to keep it. If it works, but it doesn't bring me joy, I'm going to try something else that will hopefully work. And then I'm going to go another 7 days. So the last 6 years of my life have been nothing more than like a series of 7-day experiments that started 6 years ago. Like think of it like, for me, I'm a runner, so running a race. Not only can I not see the finish line when I start running, I never need to see it to get there. The only thing I have to do is focus on the road in front of me, my place, my step, and my breath, my pace. If I do that over and over again, I'll reach any finish line I want to. It's irrelevant about worrying about how long it takes me to get there or what finish line is supposed to look like. I just have to focus on where I am right now and what I need to do to continually move forward, and I will get to every finish line. The results are irrelevant. It's the behavior that's important.
Good afternoon. We watched your movie before you came live to us, and I just am amazed where you've come from.
Oh, thank you.
The visualization of you going face down in a pile of garbage is really heart-wrenching. And that being said, you have to go through this huge mindfulness transformation to go from that to where you are now. Mm-hmm. And what I'm interested in is that.
Yeah.
That mindfulness transformation where it was sort of like a giving up to, I'm going to treat my body as the body temple that it is, and nourish it and be happy about it. So that's what I'd be interested in hearing.
Yeah, and I wish I could say it was like one day I woke up and I gained all the wisdom necessary to make that transition, but it was a series of things. But it was coming to an understanding that I have not now, nor have I ever been broken. There's never been anything wrong with who I am as a person. The only reason why I weighed 350 pounds, had type 2 diabetes, had heart disease, was dependent on drugs, was because that's exactly what's supposed to happen when you consume 5,000 to 10,000 calories of fast food on a regular basis and consume 450 milligrams of Adderall every 24 hours. If I had a different response, that would have been weird. My body wasn't broken, it was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. So I had to remove the shame, believing that I was a broken individual and therefore ended up this way. The reason I ended up in those situations physically is because my body was actually completely normal. And who I am as a person has never been the issue. And I also had to come to the understanding that it is never the person at the end of the road that's the hero in anyone's story. It is the person that we are right now that has the courage to take the first step, and then the courage to take every step from there that is the hero in the journey. So the person that I was at that moment was the person that was going to get me to where I needed to go. There's one of the things I like to say, and I think it's really important, is that it's really, really important, and it's a great thing to want to improve your life, right? To want to lose weight, reverse diabetes, reverse heart disease, all these things that are possible. But it's so much more important to love the life that will get you there. Because if that's not possible, if you don't end up loving the life that will get you to that point, then it's kind of irrelevant. And so, it came from all these, obviously I did a lot of work. I did a lot of therapy. I explored a lot of different recovery modalities. I did AA, I did Buddhist recovery, I did smart recovery. I explored every kind of thought modality out there for understanding the self in a better way, in a more honest way. But it really does come down to this understanding that we have to stop believing that there's something lacking in us, and until we get that thing, we won't be fixed. None of us need to be fixed because none of us are broken. The only difference is that the environment that I was living in was sick. Once I changed the environment that I was living in, my body responded in a typical fashion, which was I lost weight, I reversed diabetes, and through different practices, developed self-love and self-care. There's a great quote from the Blue Zones. Are you all familiar with the Blue Zones, Dan Buettner?
Yes.
He has a very simple way of saying this. If you want to be successful with food, with health, and with happiness, make it easy to do the right thing. Create personal environments that are filled with healthy and healing options. That's what this diet really did for me. I was able to create an environment where no matter my psychological issue, no matter my emotional situation, at the end of the day, I was going to be healthier than I was the day before. And building on that day to day, those daily actions of self-care and self-love gave me the courage to say maybe there are things about me, my ego, that aren't serving me, right? This need to be right was not serving me. And I was able to let that go and sit in those uncomfortable moments. Like I mentioned before, be comfortable being uncomfortable until I learn tools for dealing with emotions in a better, more healthy way. And that's the other thing, like coming to the understanding that emotions are not good or bad, right? They simply are. Right? And the human experience is to experience all of them. The reason why I experience joy on such a level is because I experience sadness on such a level. And so it's not the avoidance of frustration and anger and feeling sad or angry that is to be achieved in recovery, right? I'm not living a life where I only experience happiness and sadness. It's not possible. I mean, happiness and joy and things like that. It's not possible without the others. But rather to recognize that all emotions are part of being human, and having them, even when I have a lot of sadness throughout the day, is normal and it's healthy. And to not fight them and to let them happen so that I can gain a greater awareness of myself and how I move through the world. To know that it is only in this moment that I have a choice. That means it is only in this moment that change exists. Change doesn't happen 6 weeks from now. It didn't happen 6 days before. It happens only in this moment. And so it's irrelevant to worry about how long things are going to take, or whether I'm going to reverse the diabetes, because that has no bearing on what I'm capable of right now. And so all those things were a part of how I got to where I am. I wish I could say it's like, well, I woke up and I got out of bed on the left side and put on my right shoe first, and then that's what did it. But it's a little more complex.
Just another quick question. Talking about behavior, sadness, and happiness.
Yeah.
When you're sad or when you're happy, food-wise, what's the best?
Okay.
Vegetables is better when you're sad, and then when you're happy, I don't know.
Here's the thing, it comes to the question of how do you feel like moving through that experience of sadness is best serving you and what you want to achieve, right? So you can, if you're eating low-fat whole food plants, you can eat whenever you want. And if eating is necessary for getting you through sadness, why is sadness something that you want to avoid, right? Because I can say for myself 100% that I'm grateful for every experience of sadness that I have, because it makes happiness worth experiencing, right? There are these moments that are valuable, right? It shows me what is meaningful in my life. When I am sad about something, it means that something meaningful has happened to bring that experience to light. It's a significant moment, and I don't want to avoid that moment. Now, that's not something that's easily done. I can't just say, just go home and recognize it's a valuable moment and be okay with it. But I certainly don't look at plant foods as like there's the right time for vegetables and there's the right time for fruits. And then if you're experiencing an emotional situation and you want to eat to self-soothe, that this is the best food to do it with. There are things that you can say like, oh, well, if I'm trying to lose weight, then self-soothing with nuts is not going to be in my best interest. That's something we can say, but that's in regards to weight loss. That's not in regards to emotion.
That's right.
So that's how I would put it, right? Food is an amazing thing. And I think that, yes, it's very typical to want to self-soothe with food because we know it creates a dopamine response. Dopamine makes us feel good. We know that. But are we using it as a way to avoid experiencing the emotion? or are we just having it because we want it, right? Are we eating because we need to eat, or are we eating because we're trying to avoid experiencing an emotion that could be valuable to us? So that's where I would pose the question. I don't think there's any right answer to that question, but that's how I put it.
I'd like to go back to this lady's question about packed lunches. And I am a runner as you, and I like to travel a lot. What is your take on using whole grain breads and having peanut butter sandwiches for that packed lunch, or for the food after? I know peanut butter is very high fat, not low fat.
Yeah, that depends on the situation, right? If you're packing peanut butter sandwiches every day that you go out for lunch, at the end of the day, you're going to be consuming more calories than probably, if let's say weight loss is a goal, right? If you're consistently eating processed grains, which is what all breads are, and you're consuming nut butter, these are two very high calorically dense foods, weight loss is going to be difficult. It's not necessary to eat those things to refuel after running, but it's easy because it's light and you don't have to eat a large volume. I don't have any, like I say, I don't like to demonize food, especially when they're made from plants. But I think it's important to observe the situation that you're in and what you're trying to achieve when you're eating these foods. For me, when I eat after a run, I eat dates. I love dates. Dates are, for me, if I'm on a run, I always bring like 4 dates with me because they're small, so I don't have to put a lot of food in my stomach mid-run. They're low fat and they're delicious. They're like candy. I also know that I'm in a situation, I'm not trying to lose weight, I'm not trying to reverse diabetes. If someone is diabetic and they're eating nut butter every day, this is going to be a problem. That could be an issue because dietary fat is the causation of diabetes. So if weight loss isn't something you're trying to achieve, if you're not trying to reverse insulin resistance, you can have all the nut butter you want. But over the course of time, it could become problematic.
Dude, I could just stand up here the whole time and talk to you. I can attest to the fact that you're a runner in the Black Mountains. You were managing to get those trails done pretty quickly.
They're so great, aren't they?
Yeah, they're so much fun. And it was fun trying to beat you, too. I love to beat 30-year-olds.
He did a good job.
All right. As a health coach, what do you tell people about alcohol?
Alcohol is toxic to every organ in the body.
Amen.
That's a biological fact.
Yeah. Amen.
Right? I don't drink alcohol because I don't need it. That's why I don't drink it. I'm not drinking alcohol because I'm trying to avoid it because I'm sober. I don't live an abstinence-based lifestyle. I don't go out and avoid meat, eggs, dairy, and drugs. I get up every single day and I accept and embrace all the beautiful, nutritious, delicious plant foods, and I embrace all the behaviors and activities that don't include drugs and alcohol. Here's the thing I'd say, right? It's not my job to tell you you can or cannot drink. As a health coach, it's my job to inform you the consequences of decisions that involve food or substances. Alcohol is toxic to every organ in the body. If you go out every weekend and you have a great time, and while you're having a great time, you have a glass of wine, you know what alcohol does. That's fine. If you want to do that, that's okay. If you go out at night and you can't have a good time without a drink of alcohol, I would urge you to think about what it is that you need that alcohol for, and maybe that's a situation that needs to be reconsidered. But I never, in my health coaching, I don't recommend alcohol to anyone.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The reason I ask is it's been interesting to me the last 8 years I've been doing this. I've not drank for 8 years. To see the evolution among plant-based advocates about alcohol. First, 8 years ago, Colin Campbell said, a drink once every week, 1 drink a week is okay. But I think he'd even agree now that because it's toxic to every organ of the body, you should not drink alcohol. So,
yeah, I mean, the ideal situation is don't consume alcohol.
Yeah.
But I think that what Esselstyn is doing is he's trying to improve the overall health of a population of people, not an individual person. Right? So when he makes these statements, or if anybody makes these statements, a drink of alcohol once a week. Imagine if everybody did that. that would be a huge reduction in the consumption of alcohol of an entire population. The entire population's health outcomes would increase. Now, if you're somebody who drinks to excess when they drink, I'm not going to make that statement to you. So in the same way you look at the blue zones, right? The blue zones are 90+% whole food plant-based, but there is not one blue zone in the world that is 100% vegan. That doesn't exist. Now, if the entire population of the world adopted a blue zones diet, you would see a drastic shift in the global health concerns, and especially in westernized health concerns. However, if somebody is facing serious heart disease or diabetes or cancer, I would never recommend the blue zones diet. I would say you need to go 100% low-fat, whole food, plant-based, because that's an individualized approach rather than a population approach.
What is moderation in regards to food? And I'd like to hear it on the plant food, because my head's still spinning on that one. Thank you.
Okay, so the way I look at moderation is, I don't think you can moderate destructive things. I don't think there's any way to eat destructively in moderation. I think you can only moderate positive things. And I've heard it said this way: if you have a child who's 8 years old and they're a prodigy on the violin, but they spend every hour of the day playing violin and they don't do the rest of their homework. Playing the violin, playing an instrument is incredibly beneficial to the cognitive development of an individual. It's incredibly positive in all aspects of life. But if this child doesn't moderate that practicing the violin, they're never going to get their homework done. And that's not good either. Right, but if the same child came in and said, what's a good amount of times during the day that I can smoke a cigarette? None. There's no moderate amount I would ever advise a child to smoke. There is a healthy, moderate amount of violin playing that this child can do. So in regards to eating healthy, it's, you can moderate all the positive things you want, but I don't think we can moderate destructive. If you know that something for you is going to lead to destructive behaviors or is not really in alignment with what you're trying to achieve right now, then don't try to moderate it, just remove it for now. I'm not saying remove it permanently, but just remove it for now and see what happens, and then reassess later. So that goes with like chocolate, or for someone who's, eating like I use diabetes because I work with diabetics. I work with a group called Mastering Diabetes, where we help people reverse insulin resistance through the use of low-fat, whole food, plant-based nutrition. And dietary fat is one of the largest contributing factors to insulin resistance. So if a person is eating, 3 cups of nuts a day, nuts are healthy. There's nothing wrong with nuts. But in an insulin-resistant state, 3 cups of nuts is never going to serve them. So they're going to have to moderate that behavior, maybe remove it for, say, a month and see what happens. But it's not the nuts, it's the behavior of how much they're eating. So that's the way I like to look at it.
Yeah, nuts is an interesting one for me, because I don't know.
Yeah.
Some people say 10, I don't know, on a daily basis.
Well, I look at it from an evolutionary standpoint. The way that we work with Mastering Diabetes is we say 10 to 15% of your daily calories come from dietary fat. And that's from all foods, not just high-fat foods, from all foods. So an individual who consumes about 2,000 calories, that's about 30 grams of fat per day. The way I look at it with nuts is, if you look at the evolution of the human species, never in the history of our entire evolution has nuts been the caloric basis of our diet. Like, it's never been the caloric majority of our diet. So making it a caloric majority is probably going to enable us to run into some kind of metabolic dysfunction. Right? The majority of our diet throughout evolution has been starch-based. You focus on the starches and the grains, and you're going to find it very difficult to do it in a way that creates metabolic dysfunction or disease. But if you eat nuts all day long, you can become insulin resistant pretty quickly, and that's going to drive cardiovascular disease, it's going to drive diabetes, it's going to drive kidney disease, Alzheimer's, dementia. All these things are side effects of insulin resistance. So that's the way I look at it.
Okay, so you have worked with diabetics.
Yes.
Because that's one of the things you're doing now as you give back. My question is, what kinds of examples of changes have you seen? For example, what about kidney function and problems with the eyes? And one of our members from California, she had neuropathy in her feet. So could you give us a few examples of the things that you've seen as a result of putting plants on the plate?
Sure. So we've seen changes in all those things. Chronic kidney disease improvement, because these are all, like I mentioned before, result of insulin resistance. And let me explain to you what this is. Okay, so insulin resistance is caused by the storage of fat inside tissue that is not designed to store fat. So on a standard Western diet, individuals consume high amounts of dietary fat, well above 30% of their daily calories coming from fat. And what happens is some of that fat is burned as energy. Some of that fat is stored in our adipose tissue. And adipose tissue is everywhere. It's body fat. So some people store it more in their chest, some people store it more in their stomach, the legs, the glutes, wherever. Any fat that's left over is stored in tissue that is not designed to store fat. And that can be anywhere. That can be, when we're talking about diabetes, we're talking about our muscle cells in our liver. We talk about chronic kidney disease, we're talking about our kidney. Thyroid condition can be stored in the thyroid, it can be stored in the brain. That's where Alzheimer's happens. When you get it in the muscles of your vessels, you got cardiovascular disease. So I'll talk about it from diabetes standpoint. So what happens is you consume fat over more than you're supposed to, and over the course of time, these lipid droplets develop inside the muscle cells in the liver. And the muscle cells are designed to handle small amounts of fat, and they're stored as triglyceride. They're designed to... I froze for a second, there we go. But over the course of time, it develops more and more and more, and what happens is the muscle cells say, okay, you know what, we're full, we're done. We can't handle any more energy. Insulin receptors, you guys turn off. So now this individual goes and eats a banana, and that banana is broken down into glucose. And so insulin is released from the pancreas, and its job is to take that glucose from the bloodstream and transport it into the muscle cell to be used as energy. So insulin grabs that glucose, knocks on the cell door and says, excuse me, you want to take up this glucose? I have energy for you. Do you want to take it up? And the muscle cell says, are you kidding me? Do you see how much I have in here? I can't talk to you right now. This door is closed to you. And what it's doing is it's prioritizing the burning of stored lipids so that that problem doesn't get any worse. And what happens is now glucose remains in the bloodstream and it builds up and up and up, and over the course of time this person becomes diabetic. Not because they're consuming carbohydrate, but because they're consuming dietary fat. That same condition happens in the liver, and you end up with non-alcoholic cirrhosis or fatty liver disease. The same situation happens in the kidneys, because now the kidneys can't function properly. You get CKD, chronic kidney disease. Same situation can happen in all different organs of the body, and it manifests in different ways. So that is the condition. Now when you take that same individual and you put them on a low-fat, whole food, plant-based diet, where 80% of their calories are coming from whole, intact carbohydrate. We're talking about fruits, vegetables, greens, beans, whole grains. What happens is now the muscle cells have the opportunity, or the cells of our body, the tissue of our body has the opportunity to say, oh, thank goodness. Now we can get rid of some of this excess fat. And the liver will start releasing excess fat stores. The muscle cells will start burning it up. And all of a sudden, this person who was once insulin resistant now becomes insulin sensitive. So when an individual eats a banana, it's broken down into glucose. Insulin is released to transport that glucose from the blood to the muscle cell. Insulin grabs that glucose, knocks on the cell door, and says, excuse me, I have some energy for you to fuel your body and your brain. Do you want to take this up? The muscle cell says, absolutely. I've got plenty of room for this. This is what I want. This is my preferred fuel source. Thank you so much. And all of a sudden, the body can do its job. So when someone who is suffering from insulin resistance, which is really the disease, diabetes is more of a symptom of insulin resistance, just like kidney disease, just like fatty liver, just like Alzheimer's is now being classified as type 3 diabetes, so dementia Alzheimer's. When someone reverses insulin resistance, they can not only reverse a lot of these conditions, but prevent them as well.
Hi, Adam. Thanks for being here. I'm familiar with Mastering Diabetes, and I feel are a great group, so thank you for being there and all of the YouTube videos you do, because they're great. I'm also a diabetes coach, and I have a client who has kidney failure. And when I talked to her about a low fat whole food plant-based diet. She tells me her doctor is saying no, that she needs a low isolate diet. She cannot have all of the potassium. So I wanted to know, I know y'all have a whole different point of view, so could you help me along on how to help her?
Yeah, so actually, this person has a good point. When someone is experiencing kidney disease, potassium, you want to focus on the lower potassium foods. So you can do that on a plant-based diet. You'll just pick the low potassium fruits and vegetables for them to eat until that chronic kidney disease reverses. And then they can, we have several patients in Mastering Diabetes that are on dialysis and all this stuff. And so they have to have a modified diet where they're a low potassium intake diet. So that's what I would recommend. And here's the thing though, remember, kidney disease is driven by insulin resistance. So unless they're treating the insulin resistance, it's going to be very, very difficult, if possible at all, for them to reverse that kidney disease. Now, I don't know what stage kidney disease they're in, so I'm not going to make any assumptions that it's possible for them to completely reverse their situation, but they can definitely improve their health and their quality of life by adopting a low-fat plant-based diet. You'll just have to modify it slightly to make sure that their potassium intake is within range for what they're dealing with.
Adam, my question is, in your, I'm going to call it a practice, I'm not sure what you call it, but in your practice, do you see any positive results to cardiac rhythm problems as a result of the change in diet?
You mean like AFib?
Pardon?
Do you mean like AFib?
Yes. AFib or fast heartbeat, low heartbeat rates?
So,
Good question.
I'm not a cardiac expert, and I'm not going to pretend that I have the answer to that question. I do know that when we're talking about heart health, we know 100% that this diet is the best diet to be consuming for the health of your cardiac, for your cardiovascular health. Atrial fibrillation is more of an electrical problem. And so a lot of times that will need to be corrected with an ablation, things like that. But in terms of heart rate going up and down, I mean, there's a lot of factors that can create that, so I can't really speak to that one condition. It wouldn't simply be one answer, but I do know that this, in my opinion, this diet is the healthiest diet for consumption of the human species, because this is the diet that we've evolved from nature to consume. And so, the weight of evidence out there to support that a low-fat, whole-food, plant-based diet is the healthiest diet for every stage of the human life cycle far outweighs any evidence to the contrary. So I would absolutely say that if you're going to find benefit with dietary protocol, it's going to be with this one.
And I would add to that, I had a mitral valve problem that I had to have surgery for.
Yeah.
Nothing I could eat or not eat was going to change that problem.
Right.
If you have other problems with your heart, you want to keep the rest of your heart as healthy as humanly possible.
Yeah, when we're talking about an actual problem with the structural function of something rather than a metabolic dysfunction, that's different. Like if someone has a defect of the heart, then no matter what diet you're on, it's not going to change that. That has to be repaired or maintained or whatever, but diet is going to be the largest contributing factor to the health of the cardiovascular system.
Me again, I have a question. Well, I have two, one from me and one from a friend. You said 20% of your diet should be fat, so where do you get the fat on that part of your diet?
Well, so actually 10 to 15% of your calories come from dietary fat. So, honestly, I don't eat any nuts or seeds at all. I just don't need them, but I still consume about 25 to 30 grams of fat per day, because fat is in all plants. All plants contain every single macronutrient. They all contain protein, carbohydrate, and fat. So, for example, my oats that I ate today are 17% fat. Kale is 13% fat. Beans are like around 4% fat. Potatoes are the lowest, are like 1%. But there's no way to eat a fat-free plant-based diet. It's impossible. The goal is not to consume large amounts of overt fats. And like I said, nuts are not evil. They're healthy. Right? But we have to look at it in regards to whether or not we're going to create dysfunction by consuming too much of something. It's very typical in Western culture when something is healthy, then a lot must be healthier, and for everything that's not always the case.
Okay, thank you. And the second part was I've been doing a little bit of research on Alzheimer's, and some of the protocols for it call for a high-fat, almost ketogenic diet to help reverse it. I didn't think you'd agree with that, but...
It's never going to happen on a ketogenic diet. What I would tell you to do is look up Doctors Dean and Aisha Sherzai. Dean and Aisha Sherzai wrote the book, The Alzheimer's Solution. These doctors are the leading thought leaders on brain health and neuro health in the world. And they're amazing. They spoke at Plant Stock last year. They're going to be coming back again this year. So if you want to come and meet them in person, I urge you to do it.
Well, we're going to Skype with them next month.
There you go. You're going to Skype with Dean and Aisha.
Oh, that sounds great. Thank you. I'll have to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're almost at the end of our time, and thank you, Adam. It's just wonderful. But we're not stopping yet. We have one more question. I just want you to finish off with this question. You said that in one interview that you were a plant-based addict.
Yeah.
That you're still suffering from addictions, but they've changed. So talk to us about that.
Well, so it's not suffering. I'm not suffering. The way I look at it is that, and I use this in a way of just explaining a situation, that I've always been a really talented addict. Okay, I've always been really talented at it. For some reason, I bond really strongly with behaviors that bring me pleasure, like with all humans. And so I was really, really good at bonding with substances that were destructive for my health. All I had to do was change that energy instead of focusing on destructive things and focusing on constructive things. If I was able to do that, then I could make incredibly positive changes in my life. That's exactly what I've done. If you guys think that I'm any less bonded with plants than I was with drugs, you'd be fooling yourselves. Like, I get up every single day at 4:30 a.m. because 5 a.m. is too long to wait for oatmeal. That's literally the reason why. I'm not waiting any longer. I want my oats at 4:30. I don't want them at 5. I don't want to wait that long. And it's really, there's this great, I urge you all to go look up this individual's name. Is Johann Hari. Johann. The last name is Hari, Hari. And he's a journalist, a British journalist, and he wrote an incredible book called Lost Connections. And he has a TED Talk called Everything We Know About Addiction is Wrong. And I believe he's right when he says everything we know about addiction is wrong. That we're not, what humans do really well is we bond. We have these intense bonds and connections to things that give us connection and purpose. Right? We bond with people, we bond with the purpose, we bond with the greater goings on in the world around us. And when those positive bonds, those constructive bonds are severed, we will bond with anything that gives us pleasure. Whether it's food, whether it's sex, whether it's a bag of smack. And so really addiction shouldn't really be thought of like as the substance itself, but rather the bond that is necessary to bring pleasure into our lives. Like, for example, if I was to take any one of you and put you on heroin long enough, you become dependent on heroin. And if I took that heroin away from you, you'd go into withdrawals. Now, some people would say that that's addiction. That's not addiction, that's dependency. Right? That's dependency. You are now dependent on a substance, and when I take that substance away, you go into physical withdrawals. It can be painful. And you will beg for the drug because you don't want the pain to happen anymore, but that's not addiction. Addiction is when the connection to a valuable and positive lifestyle, connections to people and places and purpose are so badly severed that we need to fill that bond with something else that gives us pleasure. That is addiction. And it's really important to make that connection, right? So my plants have allowed me to reconnect to people and places and purpose beyond myself. It is so powerful and fulfilling that plants will always be a part of my life. Drugs were a necessary substitute to mask the misery of disconnection. And that's why drugs were easy, I wouldn't say easy, but drugs can be, we can get rid of addiction to drugs, because drugs are not the addiction, they're the substance. They're the substance that keeps us disconnected from the world around us and the people that we love. When we're able to reconnect with those things, the drugs become less and less necessary. And the stronger the bond we make with ourselves and with the people around us and the greater purpose of the world around us, the less and less likely we will ever need those drugs again. That's why I said before, I don't live an abstinence-based lifestyle. I don't go out avoiding drugs. I have a way of moving through the world now that is so valuable to myself and hopefully to others around me that drugs are no longer a thought because they're not necessary for me anymore. I don't need them to validate my existence on this planet and to bring me pleasure at all or really mask the pain of disconnection. And so that's the way I like to think about it. What plants have done for me is they were a gateway. They were a vessel for me to reconnect with what is truly meaningful in this world.
Thank you so much, Adam. Your story is inspiring, and I think everybody enjoyed it, and we're all motivated.
Thank you.
We have a little something for you.
No way!
There you go.
That's amazing!
Yes, cat and chew on the back to remember us. We'll remember you, that's for sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, okay, so we're going to mail that to you, so look for that, and we just want to thank you one more time for taking your time to make it.